viewers, it's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. There is heightened apprehension in Kano State ahead of today's ruling of the Supreme Court on who governs the state. The Apex Court will decide the fate of Abba Yusuf of the New Nigeria People's Party, who is fighting to retain his seat as governor. On the other hand, Nasiru Gawuna, Kano State governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress, will be hoping to be third-time lucky if the Apex Court affirms the decisions of the tribunal and the appeal court, which nullified the election of Yusuf. Arise correspondent Godfrey Eshemoge has more.
Kano State is a political powerhouse and before now a stronghold of the All Progressives Congress until the New Nigeria People's Party momentum spearheaded by the Kwankwasiya movement. With the matter at the Supreme Court, the APC is excited at the prospect of reclaiming Kano, a key state in the country's political equation, going by concurrent decisions of the lower courts sacking the NNPP government there. But the main decider is the Apex Court, now keeping everyone concerned at the edge of their seats. Two key issues have so far been against Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf at the tribunal and at the appellate court. First is the 165,616 votes in the March 18 governorship polls, which were deducted at the election tribunal from his tally, handing the advantage to Nasiru Gawuna. It was the conclusion at the tribunal that the ballot papers were invalid as they were neither signed nor stamped by the electoral officials. The other issue is the appeal court's verdict that Abba Yusuf at the time of the governorship election wasn't a registered member of the NNPP, a decision that is an offshoot of APC's cross-appeal at the tribunal stage. Amidst mounting tension, the Supreme Court is now expected to rule on the two issues: the validity of Abba Yusuf's nomination and the position of the law on the use of stamps and signature on ballot papers on election day.
All right, Rufai, today's Judgment Day. Yeah. Kano State and some states, but Kano very importantly because of what we've just talked about.
So Kano, a couple of states, they've reserved judgment in Kano for a while now. A lot of people have been on tenterhooks as regards Kano because the last appeal court judgment, we all saw the back and forth between supporters of certain political parties and how some people had to quell a protest that was suggested that would happen. Kano has always been a hotbed in Nigerian politics because we know its historical antecedents, been a commercial city since the 1500s, and the fact that it's a hotbed for the political movement of the Kwankwasiya movement, which takes a direct correlation from the Talakawa movement of Nepo back in the days. Hence the red cap wearing of, that channels to the political genealogy and lineage of Aminu Kano. And Rabi Musa Kwankwaso has been able to hold that strong. And somebody that was also under him at a point, that was with him, one of his closest lieutenants, has now gone against him. And they've been at loggerheads. The first election a couple of years ago, they were at loggerheads, they were neck and neck. It took just a little for, Ganduje to be able to retain his seat. And now Ganduje's anointed son, Gawuna, is out there. He's been able to win in the courts. What is the substance of the matter? The substance of the matter is the fact that they had deducted 165,000 votes, saying that because the ballot papers were not stamped and all of that. So once they made the deduction, they gave it to Gawuna in the first instance. But afterwards, they also put in the case that he was not validly nominated by the NNPP. That's Abba Yusuf. So we'll see how that pans out in Kano. There's also a case, coming up in Lagos up for determination between Jandor, Badeboru's Vival, and Governor Sanwo-Olu. There's been a lot of back and forth as regards that. Also, the case in Cross River, the case of Otu, where it was said that he was not, validly nominated by the AP. The argument from the opposition that he was not validly nominated by the APC. And the reason why they're saying that was that he cross-captured from the PDP and he refused to give up his seat at the State House of Assembly and all of that. And there was no way he could be validly nominated. But his lawyers, Michael Zekome, has said obviously that does not hold water. Another case that is, very big in our face is really the one of Plateau, Caleb Mufwang. Caleb Mufwang won with over 500,000 votes, to his opposition APC candidate Goshwe. But he did scale through in, a couple of the legal challenges from the tribunal and all of that. But he had a setback at the appellate court where it was said that because of a hitherto crisis that had been in the PDP And that crisis indeed has a lot of casualties, the likes of Samuel Mokwank of, the House, and also Senator Napoleon Bali has been casualties of that crisis because of, the PDP not setting its house in order, and there's a court order that nullified most of the, the resolutions for the party primaries and all of that. So let's see if Governor Caleb Mufwang will be able to say it's been a very big fight. In fact, recently, one of the beneficiaries of that crisis was the Minister of Labour that has now gone back to become a senator and taking a Senate seat, and that's the former governor of the state, Samuel Lalong. So let's see, how that's going to pan out, because that's a tough one to watch. Probably, you can't preempt the court, but a lot of people are looking and saying that might be a dangerous one, just as also the Kano case. And you also have some cases determined yesterday. Governor Ono of Akwa Ibom, he sailed through in his own case, and a couple of other states are coming up. But let's see how all of this pans out. And like Nigerians say, all eyes, on the judiciary to be able to make the rule of law, solid in Nigeria. But a side note for me is, this is a big indictment on our democracy. We have not learned anything. And it goes back to our electoral system. And I'm shocked that 2024 New Year, nobody's talking about electoral reforms, and we're going to another elections very soon. 2027 is just around the corner. Because if most of our elections are now going up to the Supreme Court, then we don't have a democracy. What we have is judiciocracy. It's government of the courts, by the courts, and who the court favors. And we can't afford to have that. And you ask, the will of the people, how has it been done? When we have to go to this extent, when we can't win elections in the polling units. Then why we have elections in the first place?
Well, today the Supreme Court, a 5-member panel led by Justice John Nyang Okoro, is going to deliver judgment in 7 cases, 7 different state governorship elections, including Kano, Plateau, Cross River, Ebonyi, Bauchi, Lagos, and Zamfara State. So those 7 states. Now, most of the cases, the appeals were heard in December. That of Cross River only yesterday, will be determined today. That of Bauchi, Zamfara, Kano in December. Plateau on Tuesday, Ebonyi on Wednesday. And then today, judgment will be given. The various parties involved, having presented the arguments before the Court of Appeal, have been asked to come with just a team of 2 because it will be a busy day at the Supreme Court. The fact that it's a busy day at the Supreme Court again reconfirms the concern that has been expressed by many Nigerians that the 2023 electoral process ended up with so many litigations. Almost everything had to go to the courts, all the way to the Supreme Court, creating a situation whereby you have the courts having a major say in determining the outcome of elections. And many Nigerians in civil society have argued that we would like, the aspiration should be a situation whereby the people are the ones who decide, and that outcomes, rely strictly on the will of the people so that there isn't so much litigation, which provides a basis for the continuing argument that there must be a second look, must be taken certain provisions of the Electoral Act and also the Constitution, and also how to strengthen the various institutions that are involved in the management of the electoral process, because part of the omissions will have to deal with election management and the failure of institutions. That said, many of the cases that are before the Supreme Court today are already causing anxiety, particularly in states like Plateau, Kano, and Zamfara. The cases in Ebonyi and Bauchi may be fairly straightforward, because in those 2 cases, the lower courts took the same position. And after a fashion, the apex court is not likely to depart from the decisions that had been taken concurrently by the lower courts, especially as there's no fresh evidence that have been admitted in the course of those cases. So we expect that, Ebonyi and Bauchi will be treated expeditiously. But Kano presents a different case. Plateau presents a different case. Zamfara also presents a different case. If I may just run through them very quickly. In the case of Kano, this is NNPP versus APC or vice versa. This is Governor Yusuf versus Gawuna. And the key points here has to do with one, the membership of a political party. Can another political party inquire into the membership of another political party? The second is, can a litigant, can a candidate be punished for the omissions of INEC? Because in this case, in the tribunal had originally upheld had ruled in favor of the governor Abba Yusuf of Kano. When the matter went to the appellate court, at the instance of Gawuna and the APC, the appellate court found differently. And what did the appellate court rule? It said that ballot papers, about 165,000 plus, were not stamped, and therefore rendering the votes under those ballots invalid. And therefore, that led to a deduction of about 165,656 votes from that of Abba Yusuf. And the appellate court then said Gawuna should be given the certificate of return that will be withdrawn from Abba Yusuf. Now, secondly, the appellate court introduced another matter, saying that Abba Yusuf was not even a member of the political party of the NNPP, as at the time that he was presented as candidate, and therefore he was an illegal candidate in the reckoning of the Court of Appeal. But of course, in the course of the arguments, Wole Olanikwekun SAN, appearing for Abba Yusuf, had argued, should a candidate be punished for the omissions of INEC? Section 42 of the Electoral Act applies. Rule 19 of the INEC regulations will also seem to apply in this case. And so, secondly, it was also argued that political party matters are pre-election matters, as has been decided in other cases, and that the APC and Gawuna cannot plead that, and that the appeal should be dismissed. However, Akinolujimi SAN, appearing for the APC and Gawuna, had a different argument. He quoted again the same section 42, the regulations, and also section 171. These are the two major issues that the Supreme Court will determine today in the case of Kano. In Plateau, again, the issue is about pre-election matters. The governor of Kano, of Plateau, his election had been upheld by the tribunal, but when it went on appeal, it was upturned, even on the grounds that, well, non-compliance with regulations, and then also on the grounds that, again, Mutfwang was not a valid candidate of his political party, following a ruling of a high court. When the matter came before the Supreme Court last week, the Supreme Court raised the issue of jurisdiction, as the same Supreme Court had raised the issue about whether the membership of Dauda Lawal was raised at the level of the tribunal. So in Plateau State, there will also be a pre-election matter to be determined. There will also be, matters of jurisdiction with the Supreme Court had taken notice of. In Zamfara, in the case of Dauda Lawal and Bello Matawale, now Dauda Lawal his election was upheld by the tribunal. It went to the appeal court. The appeal court found in favor of Bello Matawale and ruled that elections should be cancelled in 3 local governments. It ordered, fresh election, and it was on the basis of that Dauda Lawal went straight to the Supreme Court. This is the matter in Zamfara that will be determined. In Lagos State, the matter is involves the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the appeals by candidates of the People's Democratic Party and Labour Party, Jandor, as is popularly known, and Gbadebo Rose Vival, respectively. In the case of Cross River State, Professor Sunday Odo of the PDP challenging the governor Basio II, who had been ruled in whose favor the tribunal had ruled, and also in whose favor the appeal court had ruled. As I said earlier, Ebonyi and Bauchi may not present any big ceremony. So these are, the cases that the Supreme Court will be determining today. But beyond the concern of civil society or about high level of litigation, the other issue, the sum of it, will be the lessons that we can learn from all these processes. Yesterday, the Supreme Court reserved judgment in the Ogun State case. So all of these cases before the Supreme Court. And then, of course, security is very important, given the level of anxiety in Kano, where we had witnessed protests before. We are hoping that the security agencies will provide adequate security and ensure that, there is no breakdown of law and order. But in the long run, the job of reforming our electoral process is not done yet. The challenge of rebuilding our institutions and strengthening them is not done yet. The job of ensuring the integrity of the electoral process is not done yet. But whatever the verdict of the Supreme Court is today, in all the 7 cases outlined, we expect all the parties involved to conduct themselves after the fashion of gentlemen and respect the wisdom of their lordships.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Batten, of course, Rufai, for just detailing the cases before the Supreme Court today, 7 in total. However, 2 states are prominent out of the 7, and for reasons already outlined. Kano State, Zamfara State, well, Plateau State, and some people would add Zamfara State. But let me focus on Kano State this morning, and because, again, reports have come in that there are tensions heightened in the state, and in fact, security operatives have increased security presence in the state because of the potential, what could be a potential outbreak of violent protests following the ruling of the Supreme Court. We are not hoping that would happen. We are praying that that would not happen, and beyond the prayers, we're also taking efforts, and that's why I'm choosing to speak on that this morning. And in analyzing that case, it's important to reflect, why is it that following an election, as Rufai has termed it, a judicialcracy or something like that, that it is difficult for people, of course, to accept results. Of course, elections are emotive. It's a contest between, some people call it a popularity contest, losing an election, having put in so much money and invested a lot of manpower, financial resources, structures, heavyweight, to then lose all that is difficult for some people to accept. But there are also some key areas that perhaps if we looked into, we can improve our electoral cycles in Nigeria. Because truthfully, it doesn't always have to descend into violence. It doesn't have to descend into deaths or attacks or injuries or having to spend state resources to send police officers to ensure peace or to at least guarantee peace of lives and properties. I hear that some organizations in the state, especially in Kano State, are choosing not to open today because of what the outcome of the Supreme Court might be. Because either way, people are concerned that the opposition, or that is, whoever the loser is, would protest. So let's talk about that. First of all, I would say it's from the very beginning. We've talked about INEC being on trial following the court cases. I'm going to go very quickly to Godfrey and Abuja. I want to talk about INEC's culpability in this, in terms of how elections are conducted. Perhaps if we're conducting better elections in Nigeria that are more credible, then we wouldn't have to go to the courts to decide who will eventually be the people's leader. Then the second, of course, would be our courts. A lack of trust or, in the transparency of the courts. And this is quite sad. All right, let's move on to our next story. Foreign airlines that operate in Nigeria have expressed disappointment over the $61 million paid by the federal government as first installment to offset the $800 million revenue of the international carriers trapped in Nigeria. The airlines describe the amount paid as insignificant, saying they may review their continued flight operation to Nigeria because government did not take the payment of the blocked fund as priority. This was disclosed by the president of the Association of Foreign Airlines and Representatives in Nigeria, AFAN, Dr. Kingsley Nwokoma, during a press conference held at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport Lagos yesterday. The association said the $61 million recently released by the Central Bank of Nigeria was negligible and complained that government did not make it clear whether it would be offsetting the trap funds on planned payment schedule, which would enable the airlines know when all the funds would be released to them. Nwankoma warned that if the crisis surrounding the debt was not resolved early, some of the airlines may follow Etihad and Emirates Airlines to withdraw service from Nigeria. Oh my, let that not happen, Rufai. I mean, the government seemed to be celebrating the fact that it made headlines in some quarters that they had been able to pay back some $61 million to repatriate to funds that needed to be repatriated to some airlines, but this doesn't seem to be enough.
I mean, when you check IATA data, over $2 billion in trap funds by airline, about 800 million in Nigeria. I mean, that's a humongous number. In all of this, we're paying trickles back. But the question is, when you look at it, how much will that trickles go? 61 million, yes, we celebrated the CBN when they pay the money. But how much will it do for airlines that need their money to run? And if you know the airline business, the margins are not much. So look at their money tied down. Look at the time value of money. All the years it's been tied down. Look at capital appreciation that they ought to gain if they were investing their money in various tools or if they were planning back in their business. And we all know that post-COVID, the airline sector has been really greatly affected. So that's another factor. And that's why hence this, and that's why when you look at airlines like Etihad and all of that, yes, some people will argue that them leaving is a good one for Nigerian airlines to be able to step in place. But, we need a portfolio of many things. Also, there's a conversation about, BASA, bilateral agreements and all of that. Why is it very difficult for Nigerian airlines to be able to get the fair bargain on the other end? These conversations also should segue about this, and I don't know what's going on with Hadi Sirika. I think more questions, in the spirit of asking questions like President Tinubu, I think more questions should be asked about that botched, should I call it botched, or intended Nigerian air project. Because we need to be able to answer questions as regards the consultancy fee paid, and all the money is paid, and the renting of the Ethiopian airline plane to come and all of that. Because yes, some people have argued it's not supposed to be a big deal. I mean, I was in Togo the other day. I saw it happen very well. Askar is a proper model. Ethiopian Air, a couple of other banks on the West African continent, and it's doing well. You have direct flights out of Togo to America and some other parts of the world. But why is it not working here? So these are the questions we need to ask. Also, to further the conversation, what it does is that it makes Nigeria not a very favorable investment destination. And I'll give you a very great instance. There are so many airlines that can give cheap, affordable flights in Nigeria, but they're not ready to come into the market. If you go to just Abidjan there's Cross Air. Cross Air hardly flies in here. There are many multiple airlines. Yeah, you can make the argument that some other airlines like Uganda Airline are flying and all of that. But many other international airlines do not want to fly in that can even give cheaper air travel. And that's why you see comparatively, our tickets are very expensive compared to Ghana. I hear Nigerians now leave Nigeria, fly to Ghana, from Ghana fly to America, then come back to Nigeria. That's how they route their flights because of the ticket cost. An average ticket, economy class ticket will set you back about 2 million for a 6-hour flight, coupled with the forex challenge on ground. So the aviation sector needs a big injection. But is there a reality that we might pay this money? I doubt it soon. Maybe we'll just have to be paying trickles like this before things settle out, because we don't have the money on ground. We have a budget of 28 trillion. What is our revenue mark to not be able to now offset this bill? How much forex do we even have in our arsenal? These are the multiple problems. The CBN is trying to get itself together. So maybe more Nigerian airlines will step in. Maybe the government will also give them backing and support. But paying this money overnight is going to be a big problem. So the airlines that are threatening to leave, some will also say, yeah, if you leave, maybe other ones will step in and all of that. But we need to be able to make our business climate better for effective running of our systems.
Well, the operative principle is a principle in international law, which was pointed out by the president of the Association of Foreign Airlines in Nigeria, Dr. Kingsley Nwokuma, the sanctity of agreements. It's called Pacta Sunt Servanda. What it means is that for the international order to function, particularly in terms of trade and other relations, when you enter into agreements, you honor the agreements. So what we have here, which the Association of Foreign Airlines are pointing to, is that the Nigerian government has not respected the Bilateral Services Agreement, BASA, which requires that airlines that do business in Nigeria should be able to repatriate their funds. We've been on this matter since the Buhari administration. It wasn't created by the Tinubu administration. The Tinubu administration is trying to solve an inherited problem. Now, and it was on the basis of that problem that Emirates left Nigeria, suspended its operations. Etihad suspended its operations. And the latest development emanating from that press conference yesterday is simply that out of $800 million trapped in Nigeria, foreign airlines funds, you are paying back, the Tinubu administration has managed to provide $61 million. And they are saying it's a drop in the ocean. The association is requesting that the government should meet them halfway and discuss modalities for offsetting the trapped funds and giving them access to Forex. I think that the federal government should listen to that and see how it can meet with them and work out what can be done. That's one. Number two, they are saying that it drives up the cost of doing business because foreign airlines operating in Nigeria would have to take resources from other routes to supplement what they do in Nigeria, and that drives up the cost. The effect is that the cost of airfares in Nigeria has gone up. And that is why, many Nigerians today prefer to travel through other countries. If you want to buy a ticket, as of yesterday, to go to the United States, to go to maybe Washington Dulles Airport, if you buy from Nigeria, you will spend over 9 million naira return ticket. But if you buy the same ticket from Accra, Ghana, you will buy it for about 6 million. Look at the difference, about 3 million. And that's why Nigerians now prefer to travel abroad, either to the US or to London through Ghana. So businesses that should come to Nigeria are already heading in the direction of Ghana. Number three is the ease of doing business. The airlines that suspended their operations did so because Nigeria has become a difficult environment. And it should be no surprise that the same reason being cited by these foreign airlines is exactly the same reason cited by Procter & Gamble in December, when he said it was going to change the nature of its business in Nigeria to import only, rather than producing inside Nigeria because of these Forex problems and the high cost of doing business. So we, the people, are also suffering on account of this situation. Because if you have to go through Ghana to travel abroad, then of course imagine the additional discomfort, even if you save money. And then the sense of nationalism, that for you to be able to engage the rest of the world, your country cannot provide that ease of travel. And you have to go because you have to survive through another country. Finally, there is the point about, local airline operators, the airline operators of Nigeria. They put their voice in this matter, and their argument is that what the foreign airlines are asking for is preferential treatment, and that there should be no preferential treatment for foreign airlines operating in Nigeria. That if foreign airlines are allowed access to Forex, they too should be allowed access to Forex, because both the domestic airlines, Nigerian flag carriers, and the foreign airlines are in the same market. So that's another part of the conversation that the Nigerian government will have to pay attention to, because it's a dollar-denominated business, as Nwokoma has pointed out, and as the airline operators of Nigeria has pointed out. The bigger scandal here is that Nigeria not respecting BASA with regard to foreign airlines is not even doing enough. Let me be charitable. Instead of saying it's not doing anything to help Nigerian-owned airlines to take full advantage of BASA agreements, which are country-to-country agreements. How many Nigerian airlines fly to Dubai, for example? How many Nigerian airlines have the same frequency with British Airways on the London route and so on and so forth. So there's a lot to be done in the aviation sector, and Festus Keyamo started with a lot of enthusiasm. That enthusiasm seems to have gone down for reasons that we do not know, because carousels are not working at those airports. In fact, there's no air condition, even the lift at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport and other items there are not working. These airports are in a state of disrepair. When is the Ministry of Aviation going to start, beyond changing leadership in the agencies under that ministry?
Well, rightly said, Dr. Bati. I went to Ghana, I think it was a few months back, and in the airport, they said they'd become busier. Their airport, the Kotoka International Airport, had become busier, just for the simple fact that they'd received more business from Nigeria. So Nigerians were taking the route through, and in fact, I heard some people go to Benin Republic, any other country aside from Nigeria, in order to at least get not affordable, but at least cheaper tickets to travel abroad, despite the fact that we have FX pressure. So speaking, listening to Dr. Nwokoma, it's not just for businesses, it's also for Nigerians, individuals and Nigerians. But he's proposed a perhaps workable solution for the Nigerian government in the area of integrity and also in honoring contracts and agreements. One of which is that, at least just like any loan repayment plan, have a quarterly agreement with the airlines as to monies that will be paid to them. So not just that it would be arbitrarily paid out, would get an announcement like we did a few days back that $61 million was paid, but in the spirit of trust and just building that trust and with those airlines, a quarterly payment plan that the government can make. The only challenge is, when you look at the state of our economy, it is a bit unsure if the government can make such a commitment without defaulting on such a commitment with regards to a repayment plan quarterly to pay back $800 million, which Rotus talks about this all the time on business, when it comes for business, where he talks about how Nigeria is number one by a long mile in countries that have FX trapped, in terms by IATA records. And so it would be it's a great suggestion. The only challenge with that recommendation is if we're able to make such a commitment at this time. However, we must, because this is, if we're going to, this is monies that are trapped in our country. And like the airlines have said, they also have to spend money to run their businesses. They talk about payment for hotels, payment for catering, payment of their staff, all in dollar denomination. So they cannot continue to run their business in Nigeria if the government will not repatriate funds to them. So these are some of the issues that have come up. Beyond that, Dr. Nwokoma used the opportunity to raise concerns around some areas of improvement in the aviation space. Now, the Minister of Aviation, Mr. Festus Keyamo, in the last few weeks has made headlines with some reforms or changes that have happened in the aviation industry, some sacking of heads of agencies in the ministry. Just earlier on, we looked at in the headlines today the fact that he had asked some of them to sign a bond of leadership just to say that they were going to perform in their duties. But beyond that is that what Dr. Nwokoma had mentioned was security. The issue of people, crowding the airports who have no business being at the airport, and that in line with the insecurity situation in Nigeria, this needs to be looked into. You go to the airport, which is a security, it's a security heightened space, and you see all kinds of people there who are there for no reason. And one person is coming to ask you, let me help you with this. So there needs to be a bit of sanity. So he spoke about that, and I thought it was important to highlight that in order to also, as a hub in Africa for trade and people movement, to ensure that the airports are safer for airline operators. Again, a lot has been said about the ease of doing businesses, that we continue to lose foreign investment because of our inability to honor contracts and agreements.